Hey everybody. My audio working?
Good evening, John. I can hear you.
Thanks, Ray.
Chris, you there? John?
Hope so.
What are you doing? Mr. Vice Chair, I'm just letting you know that Tessa has sent her regrets, and Adam is going to be late to join the meeting.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'll be chairing the meeting, and as it's just past 6, I'll call the meeting to order and read our land acknowledgement. As we gather, we recognize that we're on Treaty 3 lands, which are steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations and Métis people today. We continue to be thankful for the partnerships with our Indigenous people. This is a hearing of the Kenora Planning Advisory Committee and the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Kenora. The committee members have been appointed by Council to consider applications for minor variances, consents, and plans of subdivisions and condominium descriptions within the jurisdiction of the Planning Act. The applicants or agents will be given an opportunity to speak on behalf of their submissions and to respond to questions arising from discussion of these applications. Interested members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak in favor of or opposition to the applications being dealt with at these hearings. Please ensure your microphone is on mute. Should you be joining the meeting with video, please be mindful of what is visible to the public in your surroundings. Be respectful to others throughout the meeting And if at any time you wish to leave the meeting, you're free to do so by simply clicking the end call at the bottom of your screen. If you're on a landline, you may hang up at any time. However, please do not interrupt the meeting to inform of your dismissal. This meeting is being recorded, and by continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. Tap Leave Meeting to opt out and exit the session. When it is time for public comments, I will ask those interested to raise their hand to the screen, or alternatively to use the raise hand function of Zoom. I will address the participant by name that appears on your screen or the name that was used to register for this virtual PAC meeting. Once your name has been called, please then use the unmute button of your microphone on your telephone. All persons addressing the committee shall state their full name and mailing address and must direct their comments through myself, the chair. Decisions will be mailed or emails to the applicant, agent, and to all other interested parties who have provided their mailing address and or email to the Secretary Treasurer at mshaw@kenora.ca. Also, a notice of adjourned application or possible local planning appeal tribunal hearing will also be provided to those who have made a written request from via email to the Secretary Treasurer at mshaw@kenora.ca. The decision and or any condition imposed by the committee can be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The notice of appeal for minor variance application must be filed with the Secretary Treasurer within 20 days of making the decision. The notice of appeal for a land division application must be filed with the Secretary Treasurer within 20 days of the mailing of the notice. The Secretary Treasurer for the Kenora Planning Advisory Committee is Melissa Shaw. City Planner is Kevin Sumner. And the Manager of Development Services is Adam Smith. At this time, I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer if there's any additions to the agenda. Excuse me.
A revised agenda was circulated to members, Mr. Chair, earlier today, and that did include just the new business item being PAC training for site plan control. Otherwise, I have no addition.
Okay, thank you. And I'll ask the members if there's any declaration of interest for a meeting or at a meeting which a member was not present. Okay, seeing none. I will ask the committee, the members, if for adoption of the previous minutes, are there any questions or concerns? Anything come up from the last? We're doing two sections of minutes tonight, I believe, the May 3rd meeting and the April 19th meeting. Is that correct, Melissa? Okay. Okay, seeing nothing, and those are approved. Okay, I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer if there's any correspondence relating to the applications that's come in.
I have received no written correspondence.
Okay, thank you again. Then we'll move to the first applications tonight, application for minor variance D13-22-05. That's, I believe,
that would be Miss Jackie Gothout.
1404 River Drive, Godby Properties. And Jacqueline, would you like to make a presentation on behalf of your application?
Okay. This is the planning rationale for the commercial highway trying to rezone to third density and using the same rationale for both the minor variance and the rezoning application. So the property is located at 1404 River Drive on the east side of Kenora and backs onto Lawrence and Lake. Development to the immediate south and west from River Drive and Highway 17 consists of modest residential homes, R2, the Kenora District Jail, which is industrial and highway commercial. East and north of 1404 River Drive consists of apartment complexes, R3, Lawrence and Creek, and modest residential homes. The property now contains 5 wood frames. Building 1 is a 4-story, a 4-unit apartment, 2-story, excuse me, not 4-story, 4-unit apartment buildings. 1 bedroom is building 2. Building 3 is 1 story with 4 studio and 2 1-bedroom units, as well as 2 service rooms. Building 4 is a 1-bedroom unit, a studio unit, a 3-bedroom house with the garage containing the electrical and power supply. And building 5 is a 6-studio unit that is not occupied. All of the rest are fully occupied. The building number 5 was opened for seasonal use, but there were too many water issues, freezing in the winter, so we closed it down. And that is under discussion on whether it will be either demolished or restored. Still unsure at this point. Okay. The rezoning will allow for units to be used as a single residential apartment, directly addressing Kenora's need for affordable housing. At the 3.2 general development policies, the need for affordable housing is identified as one of the top 3 priorities in the Lake of the Woods Development Strategic Plan for 2015 to 20. The apartments will target the modest income population. All apartments have full kitchens, bathroom, and living quarters. There will be parking for 1 vehicle with possibilities of second parking stall. All units have been recently remodeled, updated electrical and plumbing. All of the infrastructure is in place and has been in place since its inception. The general appearance is clean and tidy. This is an operating business, so all rainwater issues have been addressed, as well as the infrastructures. The change of use of this building will help ease the desperate need of affordable housing by 15 apartments and creates opportunity for further development on the vacant portion of land. It's approximately 2.2+ acres. This plan is in line with the City of Kenora official plan for the area and with the 2014 provincial policy statement. With zoning approval, it will meet with the permitted uses for R3 residential 3rd density. The apartment units targeted towards modest income adults, speaking directly to the need of the City of Kenora's affordable housing. That's my rationale.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. We'll get back to you if we have any questions. Okay. Kevin, do you want to proceed with the city's planning report?
Yeah, sure. And I'll keep this one rather brief. This is a relatively minor matter compared to the zoning amendment. So I'll go into a little bit more depth on the zoning amendment. And Ms. Godbout has certainly done a great job of describing her intentions for the property, which she intends to convert from the previous motel use to residential units. So this is located on the shoreline of Lawrence Lake and fronting on River Drive. There is municipal sewer and water to the property and actually crossing across the property on an easement. And we'll get into that with a little more information or more detail on the zoning amendment. Generally, I'd say this is encouraged by the provincial policy statement, which encourages providing affordable market rate and affordable housing to residents and in appropriate locations. And this is an established area of the City of Kenora, designated as such under the City of Kenora official plan, which encourages residential development in that area. The zoning bylaw is currently HC or highway commercial zone. And the proposed amendment we'll be hearing later would be to convert the zoning of the property to R3 residential 3rd density, which supports full range of housing. So in the R3 zone, the minimum front yard setback for multiple attached dwellings is 6 meters, and the minimum interior side yard setback is 2.5 meters. When we were reviewing the survey, when this was brought forward for zoning amendment, we noted that there are two of the structures that are located one at 5.4 meters from the front yard and front property line, and the other at 0.95 meters from the side property line to the north, the one that faces the street to the north, the dead end street, 2nd Avenue East. We did circulate this far in departmental and agency circulation. There was no concerns identified. We did circulate notice in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act, and no public comments were received at the time of the report or since. In terms of evaluation under the 4 tests for a minor variance, I believe the requested minor variance will allow the applicant to proceed with converting the structures in the property in compliance with regulations of the proposed R3 zone. In regards to those 4 tests, 1, the general intent and purpose of the city's official plan. It is a minor in nature and it applies to existing structures. The change in use is not anticipated to have any significant impact on any factors related to the proximity of the building to the property line. In regards to general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, the intent of the zoning bylaw is achieved where relief from a regulation may be granted if no negative impacts are anticipated. The proposed relief is considered unlikely to impact on nearby properties due to the long period of time in which the structures have been located in their present location with no identified negative impact. In regards to appropriate and desirable development of land, desirable development of land is development that is compatible with the established community, existing buildings and development. The redevelopment of the property is supported by the policies of the official plan and the provincial policy statement. And finally, the 4th test being that its proposed variance is minor in nature. I believe that it is minor in being the minimum required to accommodate the continued presence of existing structures with change of use and zoning in the future. So therefore, it's my recommendation that the Planning Advisory Committee take this into consideration, those comments that may yet be received, and that the application D13-22-05 per property legally identified as pins 42168-0006, 42168-0569, and 42168-0607 to seek relief from the City of Kenora Zoning Bylaw 101-2015, sections 4.3.3C and 4.3.3D to allow for multiple attached dwellings to be located 5.4 meters from the front lot line and 0.95 meters from the northern interior lot line should be approved.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Do you have anything further to add to that, Jackie?
No, thank you. I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah. I'm good.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask if there's anyone in the public that wishes to speak in favor of this application. Okay, seeing none, I'll ask if there's anyone in the public wishing to speak in opposition to this application. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the committee members. Anyone in the committee have any questions? Mr. Barr?
Yes, thank you. This is the variance we're looking at right now, but my question has more to do with the rezoning, which I guess is coupled with the variance. And the rezoning is to take it to an R3 zone. And I guess that would that permit, and this is for the planner, would that permit the proponent, if she wished, to tear down all the existing buildings and build an apartment building of some unknown size on that property?
Yes, any property zoned R3, an apartment building is a permitted use.
As long as they met the side yard and front yard depths. Yes,
there's been no indication by Ms. Godbout that that's her intention, but yes, that would, with it being R3 zoned, with the density limits would have to be respected on the property, but it is established area, so it would be restricted to moderate density. But yes, theoretically, an apartment building could be built on the property.
And for Mrs. Godbout, how many units do you have there now that are livable, that you're renting?
15.
16?
15.
15.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, I have a couple questions or clarifications. Jackie, you mentioned that there was a possibility of demolishing one of the units. Can you clarify which unit that is you're considering demolishing?
There is a long building. It's green in color. Can I show you on this picture here? Can you see that? This long single one right on the highway, 1404, I mean.
That's
right
the one that's the farthest southeast on the property, Jackie?
Oh my goodness.
The
Closest,
farthest down?
closest to the jail.
Yeah, I get it. Thanks, Kevin. It's on the southeast side. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. So this is to the planner. Given that we're considering the minor variance on the north lot line, I believe it's for 0.95 meters. That's just to contend with that existing long former motel unit.
Yes.
But
So that affects that building in the northwest corner and its proximity to the street to the north, and the central building, and it's just where that corner comes up on River Drive, its proximity there.
Right, but I guess my concern is if we grant that variance of 0.95 meters, that variance runs the whole length of that north lot line, does it not? So I guess my concern is in the future, you could build any type of structures along that north lot line within 1 meter of all the existing residents that are there. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yes, if the committee is concerned about that, the motion could be amended to more closely specify what buildings it applies for, to specify for existing buildings.
Well, I could live with that amendment to that. As well, would that proposed 0.95 meters run through the road allowance that goes, extends from the north boundary line to the lake?
It would be, I guess as worded, I guess it could be interpreted as being all the way along. I guess including where it takes an angle up. Yeah, I guess I was just focused on the specific area in question, but.
Well, that's my concern. I guess flipping it back to Jackie, would you be okay with an amended version of that 0.95 meters just to encompass that motel unit on the west end of the property? I'm
perfectly fine with that, yes.
Okay, what about the committee members or anybody else in favor of that, or are you all okay with the way it's been worded? Bev? You're still muted, Bev.
Sorry, yes, I agree with what you've suggested.
Anybody else? John McDougall?
And, Mr. Chair, I think that's a good observation on your point. I think it probably should just be limited to that one building, and the motion probably should be amended to reflect that. I think I'd be in favor of that as well. I think that's a great idea.
Anyone else? Okay. So does someone want to make a motion for amendment?
Oh, I can.
Kevin?
Yeah.
I can't make the motion, but I'm just going to suggest that for the wording change from what is being indicated, I just suggest in the recommendation where it says to allow for multiple attached dwellings, just after dwellings to insert in existing structures. I think would achieve the intent of what you're suggesting, though of course you're free to choose your own language.
Okay, can you do that again? Can you read that again, Kevin?
Okay, so my recommendation would then change to be that the application D13-22-05 for property legally identified as pins 42168-006, 42168-0569, and 42168-0607 to seek relief from the City of Kenora zoning bylaw 101-2015, sections 4.3.3C and 4.3.3D to allow for multiple attached dwellings in existing structures to be located 5.4 meters from the front lot line and 0.95 meters from the northern interior lot line should be approved. And that's just to recognize that at the time that these are converted, they'll be changing the use in existing structures. But then it wouldn't, if the future owner were to put multiple attached dwellings elsewhere on the property, they would need to respect all current zoning requirements.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Anyone got anything further to add to that? Okay. Then I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer to read the motion.
Sure. So mimicking much of what Mr. Sumner just said, but application D13-2205 for property legally identified as PIN 42168-0006, 42168-0569, and 42168-0607 to seek relief from the City of Kenora zoning bylaw 101-2015, section 4.3.3C and 4.3.3D to allow for existing multiple attached dwellings only to be located 5.4 meters from the front lot line and 0.95 meters from the northern interior lot line should be approved.
Thank you, Melissa. Someone move.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I don't think is that what Kevin suggested?
Kevin had suggested that for existing multiple attached dwellings, for multiple attached dwellings that are existing to be located. So I just moved to the existing in front of multiple attached dwellings and added the word only, subject to your amendments. Would you like me to read it again?
Well, it's
just that one phrase. Kevin,
Melissa, just read the last line there where it has to deal with the existing.
Yeah, so it's sections 4.3C and 4.3.3D to allow for existing multiple attached dwellings to be located 5.4 meters from the front lot line and 0.95 meters from the northern interior lot line should be approved.
Correct. So John, that just included that one building on the left-hand side there.
Okay, that's fine.
So I have to allow for existing multiple attached dwellings. You wanted me to reference the western lot line?
Kevin?
I just, yeah, it's a bit of a technicality, but because this is going to be a future conversion of multiple attached dwellings, so I think it is important to say multiple attached dwellings in existing structures because it's going to apply to a future conversion.
So I am removing to allow for existing multiple attached dwellings. I'm putting to allow for multiple attached dwellings in existing structures to be located 5.4 meters from the front lot line and 0.95 meters from the northern interior lot line should be approved.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm okay with that. So we have someone move that amended motion, John, and seconder, Mr. McDougall. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. This will be subject to a 20-day appeal period. Of course, this is concurrent with the application for zoning bylaw amendment D14-2204, which we will hear later on the agenda. So because we are referencing the R3 section of the zoning bylaw, which is section 4.3, this will be contingent upon that approval and the rezone of the property as well. The appeal period does take us to June 6th. which ironically is the day before the statutory public hearing. So assuming everything goes well with that, your appeal period will be over before we carry out the zoning bylaw amendment. But I will send you notice of that decision by Thursday this week.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Okay, we'll move to application for consent. Excuse me for one sec. Melissa, are we going to do the concurrent application for Godboo's property here, or is in a row?
Up to the committee, Mr. Chair, however you'd like to proceed with the agenda.
Okay. I guess I'll throw that out to the committee. Do we want to continue with the application for consent for the Godboo property, or just keep them in more order?
Yeah. Sure,
Okay.
I'm okay with that, Ray.
Okay, sounds like we're good to go. So Jackie, you're back on then.
Okay, good. Do I need to read the rationale again, or?
Yeah, if you could summarize it for us, and if you have anything to add that that you want to put in there, but yeah, summarize it if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm looking to rezone the area known as that we call the village, which is 1404 River Drive, Kenora, Ontario. Right now it is a motel, formerly known as the Lawrenceside Inn. It has been renovated and to apartment units. They have full kitchens, full bathrooms, and living areas. There's adequate parking space for one vehicle with additional spaces for second vehicles in an alternate parking lot on the same property. There is one building which has 6 units that we are in the middle of deciding whether to renovate or demolish. All of the rest of the units have been renovated now, and they are fully occupied. It speaks to the desperate need for housing in Kenora. It has created 15 apartments. And it's on 2.5 acres, or 2+ acres, not quite 2.5. Feature on the river road, and as well as Lawrence and Lake. The area surrounding it is a lot of R3, R2, and industrial. The apartment units are targeted towards modest income adults and speaks directly to the city's need for affordable housing, which I already stated. The site is clean and tidy, fully occupied, and I'm sure that it's a benefit to Kenora and the housing.
Okay, thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Kevin, if you could summarize your report.
Certainly, this will be a little bit longer than the last one, just to touch on a few more things in depth with the rezoning. So as mentioned, the proposed rezoning is from HC or highway commercial to R3 residential third density. As the applicant has indicated, the intent is to establish or change the use to multiple attached dwellings, which aren't permitted in the HC zone. This is the former location of the Lawrenceside Inn, which functioned as a motel. It is located on the shorelines of the Lawrence and Lake and consists of 5 separate main buildings plus accessory structures. The property is serviced with municipal sewer and water on River Drive. Municipal sewer and water lines cross the property via an easement to provide services to properties on 2nd Avenue East to the north. Concurrent application for minor variance was already considered. On approval, section 1.10 of the zoning bylaw will apply, being applications for building permits are required per the Ontario Building Code Act and Ontario Building Code, in addition to other relevant policies of the official plan, zoning bylaw, and site plan control bylaw. So it will require site plan control approval because there's more than 4 units being proposed, and the conversion will require a building permit to bring them into code compliance for residential dwelling units. It's a different code requirements than there are than for motel units. So there's an image there of the property from River Drive provided for information. Turning to the provincial policy statement, the policies of the PPS 2020 encourage planning authorities to provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities to meet projected market based on affordable housing needs of current and future residents of the regional market area by permitting and facilitating all types of residential intensification, including redevelopment in accordance with policy 1.1.3.3. And that policy 1.1.3.3 directs planning authorities to identify appropriate locations and promote opportunities for transit-supported development, accommodating a significant supply and range of housing options through intensification and redevelopment, where this can be accommodated, taking into account existing building stock or areas, and the availability of suitable existing or planned infrastructure and public service facilities required to accommodate projected needs. Turning to the official plan, the land use designation is established area, which permits a mix of residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional uses. The designation of lands as an established area indicates that there will be little change in these areas over the lifetime of the plan. So little change in the neighborhood at the neighborhood scale. Residential development is encouraged in the established area through plans of subdivision, condominium, and consent as infilling or redevelopment of existing uses on full municipal services. Medium density residential uses are supported provided that the development is in keeping with the character of the area. Turning to the zoning, it's currently zoned highway commercial, which does not permit the development of multiple attached dwellings. The proposed R3 zone does allow for the development of a full range of housing forms and other compatible uses serviced by municipal sewer and water. Multiple attached dwellings are permitted use in the R3 zone. And I just mentioned the variance, which has already been considered and decided upon. Turning to interdepartmental and agency comments, we did get a few comments on this. Building department noted a change in use permit may be required. Fire and emergency services noted it looks like buildings 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will all require inspection and possibly application of Section 9 retrofit of the fire code. Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry noted that at this time, no known habitat or natural heritage features have been identified, and as such, we are not recommending additional evaluation. If any wildlife features are identified, they have asked to please identify the applicant or to advise the applicant to contact our office. And just turning back to those building and fire emergency service comments, those are really in regards to the future change in use as stated in the planning rationale. So based on the information provided, that change in use permit would be required. And at that time, the Section 9 retrofit of the fire code would be something that would have to be taken into consideration. It's not something that has to be done prior to the zoning amendment. Public comments. We did send out notice in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act, which stated we would have the meeting here tonight. And as of the date of the report and since, no public comments have been received. In terms of my evaluation, I believe that the proposed zoning amendment is appropriate to permit redevelopment of the property as multiple attached dwellings. Both the provincial policy statement and the official plan are supportive of the zoning bylaw amendment. The proposed redevelopment will provide dwelling units to meet local housing needs on a fully serviced lot within the city settlement area. This location is approximately 1 block from a transit stop for the city's lakeside route at the corner of River Drive and Highway 17 East, just speaking to the priority we're supposed to put on access to transit routes. Site plan control approval will be required due to the change in use of the property to multiple attached dwellings containing more than 4 dwelling units. The applicant will also be required to consult with the building department regarding the requirement for a change in use permit and with fire and emergency services regarding inspection and possible application of Section 9 retrofit of the fire code. The concurrent application for minor variance must also be approved prior to redevelopment of the property, which we've already heard. None of these requirements are recommended as preconditions for zoning amendment, as the zoning must first be in place in order to consider the change in use and associated approvals. Therefore, it's my recommendation that as the planner for the city of Kenora, it's my professional planning opinion that the application for zoning bylaw amendment, file number D14-22-04, to change the zoning of the subject property from an HC highway commercial zone to R3 residential third density zone should be approved in lieu of public comments that may yet be received. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Jackie, do you have any questions or anything further to add?
Nope, I'm content with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the floor to the public. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Okay, seeing no one. Okay, I'll ask if there's anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application. Seeing none, I'll move to committee members. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer to read the motion.
Certainly. Resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kenora to approve application for zoning bylaw amendment file number D14-2204, subject property municipally known as 1404 River Drive, Kenora, Ontario, and locally known as the Laurenside Inn, identified in Schedule A, which is an attachment to the resolution. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to change the zoning of the subject property from HC Highway Commercial Zone to R3 Residential Third Density Zone. The effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to enable the conversion of the existing structures from motel to apartments, in brackets, multiple attached dwellings. The committee has made an evaluation of the application upon its merits against the official plan 2015, the zoning bylaw 101-2015, and the provincial policy statement 2020, and provides a recommendation to council purely based on these matters, whereas the committee may have not had the opportunity to hear public comments in full.
You. I'll ask for a mover for that recommendation. Mr. McDougall, seconder. Bev. Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried.
Thank you. So Ms. Godbout, this is a recommendation to council. The statutory public meeting will be held at noon on June 7th. And that will be the committee of council who will hold that meeting. We will be in contact prior to then, but you have received a recommendation from the committee here this evening.
Perfect, thank you. Do I leave the meeting now?
You can.
You're
welcome to stay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move to application for consent D10-2209 for the unaddressed property in Highway 596. The applicants Gerald and Melody Bouchard. Are they with us tonight?
I am.
You are, Melody?
I
am. The floor is yours if you want to explain your application or planning rationale.
My planning rationale. We would like to sever 3 lots from our existing property to provide our next generation a place to settle down and raise their families. Both of our families have lived in this area for our entire lives. In 1932, my great-grandparents purchased this property, sold it to my grandparents, my parents, and now my husband and I have owned it for more than 20 years. We would like to honor my great-grandparents by in part continuing their legacy. Lots, if allowed to sever, will substantially increase city tax revenues with no real impact to city expenditures. This portion of the roadway is the responsibility of the MTO. Hydro is supplied by Hydro One. Sewer and water will be private wells and septic fields. Garbage service is provided to Sunnyside Road, but we would encourage garbage and recycle to be taken to the land transfer just because of our abundant wildlife. This area is already serviced by buses for school transport. We feel this is a perfect time to give our children the same opportunity as we had to raise their families in a place rich with family history, in a place close enough to enjoy city amenities, and for these families to continue to be a part of the community of the city of Kenora.
Okay, thank you, Melody. Kevin, do you want to move on with your planning report?
Yeah, certainly I will do. Sorry, give me 1 second here. Now, one thing, speaking with Ms. Bouchard yesterday, she indicated that she would like to amend her application slightly to address the concerns regarding the easement agreement. So when I get to that, I'll share screen with a slightly amended diagram, which I believe reflects what she's what she's proposing. So just a heads up about that, and I'll get back to that. I'll get to that in a second. Oh. Sorry, playing around with windows here. Okay, so the application for consent is proposing to create 3 new lots. The effect of the approval would be to sever an existing property and create 3 new lots sized from north to south approximately 2.41 hectares, 2.36 hectares, and 3.05 hectares. The existing property, and this is a bit of a unique situation. I don't think we have too many properties like this. It actually extends into unorganized territory west of the municipal boundary. So if you look at figure 1, you see the 3 lots being created, and all those 3 lots are within the municipal boundary. But if you look at figure 2, that's the full extent of the property. It extends quite far to the west and northwest into unorganized territory. The 3 new lots will have frontage on Highway 596, and the intended use of those lots is for residential development. The property is located in the northwest corner of the intersection of Highway 596 and 17A. It is largely tree covered with some marshy areas located adjacent to the highway. There are no existing structures in the area of the proposed lots. An easement at the northern boundary of the proposed lots provides access from the highway to the residual property and to lots located north of the existing lot, only one of which is located within municipal boundaries. Neighboring properties appear to be primarily residential uses or undeveloped, with the exception being the Freshwater Cuisine Fish Processing Company, which is located approximately 100 meters east of the subject property. And I included an image there, a photo I took of the property from the entrance to Sunnyside Road on the east side of the property. You can see the marshy areas, the lower vegetation in the foreground there. In terms of consistency with legislative policy and city directives, I believe the application is generally consistent with the policies of the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, which promotes managing and directing land use to achieve efficient and resilient development and land use patterns. The PPS permits residential development, including lot creation that is locally appropriate, and states that development that is compatible with the rural landscape and can be sustained by rural service levels should be promoted. In regards to the official plan, the designation of the subject property and all of the surrounding properties is rural area, which provides for a variety of agricultural, residential, industrial, commercial, recreational, tourism, and open space uses. The residential development in the rural area is restricted to single detached dwellings on relatively large lots serviced by private water and sewage. Development proposals are to be limited in scale and not detract from the planned role and function of the settlement area, and preserve rural character and the scenic quality of the rural landscape, avoiding densities more appropriately found in the settlement area. In terms of zoning bylaw, the property is zoned RU, or rural zone. Development in this zone is subject to the regulations of section 4.12 of the zoning bylaw. Single detached and seasonal dwellings are permitted uses in the zones. Lots in the zone must have a minimum frontage of 90 meters and a minimum lot area of 2.0 hectares, all of which are exceeded with the proposed lots. Adjacent properties are also zoned RU, and then as mentioned, there's the highway commercial zone for the fish processing plant 100 meters east of the subject property. When we circulated this for departmental and agency comments, we did get a few comments back. Hydro 1 noted that a short segment of rural distribution feeder line crosses the proposed lot, part 1. Hydro 1 requests the ability to take an easement on this portion of land prior to severance. Northwestern Health Unit noted that, at least at the time they commented, they had started the application process, but had not been able to conduct a proper site inspection until the snow was gone and some of the frost had left the soils. They indicated that this wouldn't be feasible during the time for comments. And they reserve the right to comment until conditions permit, but we haven't heard any further comment as of today. I imagine they're catching up on a backlog of spring work here now that snow has cleared. Municipal Affairs and Housing noted part 3 on Plan 23R 9241 shall remain with Lot 1 being created. There shall be a condition which indicates the easement agreements, Part 1, 23R 11238, ST Part 3, I won't go through the whole legal description, but that essentially that easement agreement with the property to the north remain on title and benefit lands located outside of the municipal boundary. And I'll get back to that. There's a reason I'm going over it briefly. In Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry noted the Crown Land Use Policy Report for this area recommends that new lots have a minimum frontage of 46 meters and depth of 90 meters. The proposed lot appears to meet those criteria. They note that the east portions of all 3 lots include wetlands with a small water course. The city may wish to consider road access from the north and west or east access to lots consolidated through a single wetland and water crossing to minimize impacts on sensitive water features. The northern 2 lots are overlapped by a stratum 2 deer wintering area. Efforts to minimize coniferous forest clearing are encouraged for these lots. An assessment of significant wildlife habitat or fish habitat, the environmental impact statement is likely not necessary for this application. And they provide an email address for SARS Ontario for advice on requirements related to species threatened or endangered for the information of the applicant. Circulation of the notice was completed in accordance with Section 53 of the Planning Act. We did receive no public comments at the time of the report or since. So my evaluation is that if approved, the proposed new lots will allow for development of 3 new residences to support local housing. The application is supported by the policies of both the provincial policy statement and the official plan, and is compliant with the regulations of the RU zone of the zoning bylaw. And I note for information the legislative framework for consent approval. And then before I get to recommendations, I just want to, as I mentioned, I was speaking with Ms. Bouchard briefly yesterday in regards to the easement concerns that had been brought forward by Municipal Affairs and Housing, wanting to keep the easement on title, which complicated things because with a 2-party easement and then a 3rd party coming in with future ownership of lot 1, Ms. Bouchard was concerned about the implications of that easement. So what she suggested, and it's unfortunate, Ms. Bouchard, that you're not online to see the pictures here. I just drew up a sketch which I'll bring up here. Just give me a second. I'm just going to share a screen here. Okay, can everybody that's online see the screen here, this map?
Yep.
Yeah, so what Ms. Bouchard indicated was that she'd like to move the northern boundary of lot 1 further south, leaving the small area between that and the lot to the north, which contains the access easement with the neighboring property owner to the north on the residual property. So that small portion would remain with the residual portion to the west. If you remember that larger picture, it is a narrow frontage, but that residual property does meet the minimum lot width requirement, frontage requirement. It has quite a large frontage on the Highway 17A as a frontage for the property. So I don't see any concerns there. And so if it's approved that way, I just wanted to bring that sketch up so people could see what I was talking about. It's nice to have a visual there. So with that being, if with that change, that could remove the item 5 from the conditions as laid out. So with that, my recommendation would be that the application be approved based on that revised sketch, and that property line will be approximately in that location. It is just based on the verbal description by Ms. Bouchard, and she may be able to speak to this to the committee after I finish if there's any questions. So my recommendation with that would change to being the application D10-22-09 for consent for lot severance on property located on unaddressed property on Highway 596, legally described as PIN 42153-0405. City of Kenora be approved and provisional consent be granted subject to the following. 1, the original executed transfer/deed of land form, a duplicate original, and 1 photocopy for city records be provided for each parcel. 2, a schedule to the transfer/deed of land form on which is set out the entire legal description of the pins in question and containing the names of the parties indicated on part 1 of the transfer/deed of land form be provided for each parcel. 3, that approved permits are received from the Northwestern Health Unit for private servicing. 4, that the reference plan of survey indicates that part 3 on 23R-9241 shall be remain with lot 1 being created. And then the new number 5 would be that prior to final approval, an easement is registered in favor of Hydro 1 for the rural distribution feeder line across proposed lot part 1. 6, 3 original copies and 1 PDF copy of the reference plan of survey bearing the land registry office registration number and signatures as evidence of deposit therein and illustrating the parts to which the consent approval relates, which must show in general the same area and dimensions as the sketch forming part of the application be provided. 8, that the payment of any outstanding taxes, including penalties and interest, and any local improvement charges, if applicable, shall be paid to the City of Kenora. 8, that an application for entrance permit for each lot is received and approved by the City of Kenora, or alternatively, a single entrance permit is obtained and easements are registered in favor of the other 2 lots for access to the shared entrance. 9, that prior to endorsement of the deeds, the Secretary Treasurer shall receive a letter from the owner or owner's agent/solicitor confirming that conditions number 1 through number 8 have been fulfilled. Clearance from the City of Kenora and external agencies as required are to be included. And 10, that all costs associated with surveys, legal fees, and matters related to the application are the responsibility of the developer/applicant. And I note for information that section 5341 and 5343 of the Act will apply. With that, I conclude that my report.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Melody, or do you have any further questions or anything to add with respect to that planner's report?
No, everything sounds good to me.
Okay, and you're clear with the recommendations and the proposed Hydro 1 easement there at lot 1?
Hydro 1 wanted to have a site visit with us before we went too much further. They were talking more about a line that would go in right across from Sunnyside Road. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out which Hydro 1 person to speak to, but we're okay with an easement, whichever way they need to have it done.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Then I'll ask if there's anyone in the public wishing to speak in favor of this application. Okay, seeing none, I'll ask if there's anyone in the public wishing to speak in opposition to this application. Okay, seeing none, I'll open the floor to committee members for any comments, discussion, or questions. Mr. McDougall?
Just a quick question. The size of the lot lot number 1 on the original, like on the staff report, was indicated to be 2.41 hectares. If that sketch that Kevin, you showed us, does it change the area of that lot?
Yes, I'm confident that, and certainly Ms. Bouchard can, confirm this with in her own words, but she indicated that she would shuffle things. So I think probably that lot line can be adjusted and still meet the 2 hectares. If not, the next lot line may need to be shuffled down slightly as well to make sure that the 2 hectares can be met. But certainly we can work with the applicants as they get their survey done and make sure with their surveyor that they meet that 2 hectare requirement. There's lots of room there.
Okay, and is that something that Mr. Chair, we should specify anywhere? Like, I know it's a requirement for that rural zone to have a minimum lot size, but do we need to identify that anywhere, or is that just, I know there's a kind of a big range in the size of those 3 lots, but sort of from a little over 3 to probably closer to 2, or just throwing it out there for discussion.
Do you have anything to add to that, Kevin? How do we guarantee that we maintain that minimum 2 hectare lot size?
Well, and whenever these consents are approved based on sketches, what our approach is to make sure that once those surveys are finally completed, that everything is compliant with the zoning bylaw. So I'm confident that we can achieve that. you know, there are some cases where I'd be nervous where things are being shoehorned, you know, and there's a bare minimum area, but in this case, there's ample room to meet those requirements. And but Ms. Bouchard can certainly answer for herself on that.
Well, from what I hear from, excuse me, Melody, from what I hear from you, Kevin, we confirm that through the survey process. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay. And sorry, Melody, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I'm absolutely, we want more space, but we just need that little bit of space off of that easement, and then we'll be good. We'll make sure we have what we need.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that. John, you okay with that?
No, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, anyone else in the committee? Okay. Then I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer to read the motion, I guess the amended motion. Go ahead, Melissa.
Sorry, I just wanted to confirm with the city planner that there was the removal of number 5 within your recommendation.
Yeah, so condition 5 removed and then just everything else renumbered.
Okay, Mr. Chair. So I won't reread the conditions if that's okay with the committee, but just confirming that the recommendation is now to remove condition number 5 pertaining to the easements.
That's correct. Okay. So
the decision is that the application D10-2209 consent for lot severance on property located at an unaddressed property on Highway 596, legally described as PIN 42135-0405, City of Kenora, be approved with provisional consent and subject to the conditions outlined in the planning report.
Okay. And is there a mover? Mr. McDougall, seconder, Bev. Okay, all in favor? It's carried.
Thank you. So Ms. Bouchard, you have received provisional approval here this evening. I will send notice of the decision to you by email Thursday of this week. Please be advised that the decision is subject to a 20-day appeal period. Noting we did not receive any comments from the public objecting the application today. I do not foresee this being of concern. However, we are entitled to provide that 20-day appeal period. So that would take us to June 8th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving to application D10-22-10, consideration for consent of 746 East Mellick Road. Looks like Hook, Seller, and Lundin is going to represent the applicants. Who do we have? Laura? Kimberly?
Hi, Mr. Chair. Kimberly is on, but I know she was attending late, so I am prepared to present on her behalf. So I'll go ahead.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this application is to sever a piece of land that would create one additional lot. And the subject property is located at 746 East Mellick Road, and it's roughly 18 hectares in size. The property has frontage on both East Mellick Road and on Black Sturgeon Lake. And the use of the property right now is currently residential, and it actually currently encompasses the applicant's home. The proposed severance will result in a creation of a 2-hectare parcel from the subject property, which will comprise of vacant land. And it's the intent of the applicant to transfer this lot to family members in the future for residential use. And as outlined in the staff report, the proposed new lot will have frontage on East Mellick Road, but it will not extend all the way to the shoreline on Black Sturgeon Lake. It will be a back lot. In regards to the municipal services, the proposed lot is fronted by a municipal road that's maintained year-round. Water and sewer would be private services, and waste and recycling would be provided by the City of Kenora. In terms of planning considerations regarding the provincial policy statement, the official plan, and the zoning bylaw, we would submit that this application is consistent with those directives. The creation of the new lot will promote further residential development in an already established rural area, and its proposed use as a residential lot is consistent with the rural designation under the official plan. And then further, the proposed lot size and the use itself also conforms with the zoning bylaw in the Black Sturgeon Lake restricted area. And so with all that being said, we would submit that this application does conform with the legislative framework for consent approval, and we would ask the committee this evening to grant provisional consent to sever. And that is everything I have to say on this matter. I'll turn it over to Kevin for his report.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Kevin, the floor is yours for the staff report.
Yes, certainly. So as mentioned, this is to create one new lot in the BSL 29 Black Sturgeon Lake Restricted Development Area Exception 29 zone. The existing property extends from East Mellick Road to the shorelines of the lake and is largely tree covered with a centrally located yard site and accessory structures. The existing dwelling is serviced with a private well and septic field. The area of the proposed new lot is tree covered and undeveloped and is located more than 300 meters from the lake, from the shoreline on a back lot, as Ms. Wheatley mentioned. Neighboring properties along the west side of East Mellick Road primarily contain residential uses or remain undeveloped. I was unable to do a site visit due to our wet conditions here locally, so I apologize for not being able to provide a photo for the committee's reference. Moving on to legislative policy and city directives. The Provincial Policy Statement 2020, the application, I believe, is generally consistent with the policies of the PPS 2020, which promotes managing and directing land use to achieve efficient and resilient development and land use patterns. The PPS permits residential development, including lot creation that is locally appropriate, and states that development that is compatible with the rural landscape and can be sustained by rural service levels should be promoted. In terms of the official plan, the land use designation is rural area, which provides for a variety of agricultural, residential, industrial, commercial, recreational, tourism, and open space uses. Adjacent properties also share this designation. Residential development in the rural area is restricted to single detached dwellings or on relatively large lots serviced by private water and sewage. Development proposals are to be limited in scale and not detract from the planned role and function of the settlement area and preserve rural character and the scenic quality of the rural landscape, avoiding densities more appropriately found in the settlement area. The northern portion of the proposed lot is designated as potential aggregate area. So if you look at the official plan map, figure 2 in my report, you'll see there's a sort of a shaded area at the northern edge of the property. And that is indicates it's designated as a potential aggregate area, but it's, in my opinion, has low potential for extraction due to the previous subdivision that's created 3 narrow residential lots to the north of this one. And I also have reference, if you also referencing the map, the red hatched area adjacent to the lake is designated as Black Sturgeon Lake Restricted Development Area under the official plan, but this has no effect on the proposed new lot as it's over on the other side of the property from that hatched area. In regards to the zoning bylaw, the property is zoned BSL 29, Black Sturgeon Lake Restricted Development Area Exception Zone. The development in the BSL zone is subject to the regulations of section 4.18 of the zoning bylaw. Purpose of the BSL being to implement the Black Sturgeon Lake Restricted Development Area special policy overlay on the city's official plan. Back lots, being lots with no shoreline frontage in this zone, must have a minimum frontage of 90 meters and a minimum lot area of 2 hectares. The 29 exception on the BSL zone on this property was put in place prior to the subdivision of this and the adjacent lots. And the only effect of this exception is to reduce the required frontage of 1 lot, which is lot 19 of that subdivision, from 90 meters to 46 meters. And this has no effect on this property or the proposed new lot. This one isn't lot 19. 2 portions of the subject property or property shoreline are zoned as EP environmental protection, but this also has no effect on the proposed new lot as they're over on the other side of the property. Adjacent properties along the shoreline share that BSL zoning, while properties to the east are zoned RU or rural zone. We did send this for interdepartmental and agency circulation. The comments we received back from the roads department, which noted that entrance permits will be required, and from the Northwestern Health Unit, which offered the same comments as we heard on our previous consent application, which is that they've been in contact with the owners, but haven't been able to conduct a proper site inspection. And if they have since, they haven't updated us as of today. But you know, the Northwestern Health Unit permits will be approved for required for any septic field approval. or septic system approval. Public comments, we did circulate this in accordance with section 53 of the Act, and no comments had been received as of the date of the report or since. So my evaluation is that if approved, the proposed new lot will allow for development of a new dwelling site to supply local housing. The application is supported by the policies of both the PPS 2020 and the official plan, and is compliant with the regulations of the BSL 29 zone of the zoning bylaw. I note legislative framework for consent approval for information, and I'll move forward to my recommendation, which is that application D10-22-10 for consent for lot severance on property located at 746 East Mellick Road, legally described as PIN 42134-0566, City of Kenora, be approved and provisional consent be granted subject to the following. 1, that the original executed transfer/deed of land form, duplicate original, and 1 photocopy for city records be provided for each parcel. 2, that a schedule for the transfer/deed of land form, in which is set out the entire legal description of the pins in question and containing the names of the parties indicated on page 1 of the transfer/deed of land form, is to be provided for each parcel. 3, that approved permits are received from Northwestern Health Unit for private servicing. 4, that 3 original copies and 1 PDF copy of the reference plan of survey bearing the Land Registry Office registration number and signatures as evidence of deposit therein, and illustrating the parts to which the consent approval relates, which must show in general the same area and dimensions as the sketch forming part of the application, be provided. 5, that the payment of any outstanding taxes, including penalties and interest, and any local improvement charges, if applicable, shall be paid to the City of Kenora. 6, that an application for an entrance permit is received and approved by the City of Kenora. 7, that prior to endorsement of the deeds, the Secretary of Treasurer shall receive a letter from the owner or owner's agent/solicitor confirming that conditions number 1 through number 6 have been fulfilled. Clearance from the City of Kenora and external agencies as required are to be included. And 8, that all costs associated with surveys, legal fees, and matters related to the application are the responsibility of the developer/applicant. And I know for information that sections 5341 and 5343 of the Act will apply. With that, I conclude my report.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Laura, do you have any questions of the report or anything to add?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Given that, I'll open the floor to anyone from the public who wishes to speak in favor of this application. Brett, I see you've got a Zoom.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just give us, I assume you're the owner of this property, right? I assume?
That's correct. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Very nice. Well, thank you through the chair and the members of the committee. First of all, thank you for your time tonight and your consideration of this application. I'll be brief. I don't have much to add to Laura, except to say that we are also a family, having listened to the previous application, putting down roots. It's drawn us to Kenora. I first bought a business here in 2019, at the end of 2019, prior to COVID. I'm the local McDonald's owner. I also have a number of locations across Manitoba and Ontario, here in Ontario. And we were drawn to Kenora because we're originally from the West Coast, and in fact, British Columbia. It's been an incredible journey living here. I can tell you, and you'll find some humor in this, when I first asked and spoke to a local realtor about finding me a property, my instructions were, I want something private, I want a minimum of 100 acres, and I want on Lake of the Woods. And that's the humorous part. And within the boundaries of the city of Kenora, they just don't exist. And we spent a lot of time looking. My wife found this property through our realtor, and we actually bought as many lots around us as we could. So when you reference the upland properties, the 3 upland lots, we also own those lots. What I didn't expect, members of the committee, was by way of background, my first market with McDonald's was in Thompson, Manitoba. A lovely community, a great place of a business and the outdoors, but it wasn't something that my family was racing to surround me with. So Kenora has been this wonderful place where I have all my family here working for me. My parents have even joined us, and we are wanting to put down roots and be together on this property. My previous life was a developer in Victoria, if you can believe it. And I'll tell you that upland properties, particularly waterfront properties, and I can speak more for waterfront on the ocean, upland properties actually detract from value. So there's nothing that I'm gaining here by creating a subdivision that I understand is within the zoning bylaws, except to allow me the consideration of providing properties for my children and my grandchildren who have just been born, and we're expecting one in the next couple of days. So really, this is about family putting down roots in community. I'm so happy that my family is here because, you know, the very measurement of our brand in town, and it's been hard to see through in COVID, but the measurement of our success is the footprint in the community. And so to know that my family is here and wanting to stay here and create those legacies is important to me. So I thank you for your consideration. I believe without any neighbors providing feedback, at least in writing so far, I'm hoping that they support this. I'll be very sensitized. One thing I love about Black Sturgeon is there are a number of names that are my immediate neighbors that have been here for generations. And that makes me feel proud to be in this area and a steward of this community. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Brett. And if I may, we haven't met, but welcome to Kenora.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just caught one thing in the staff report that I just wanted to clarify with Mr. Sumner. In terms of the Planning Act conditions, section 53 sub 41, Kevin, can you just confirm that the new amendments to the Planning Act apply to this application? The conditions are 2 years after notice? Just in the staff report, it still says 1. I just want to confirm that it is in fact 2.
Yes, good catch. I hadn't noticed that that was an amended section. So yes, it would be 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. I'll keep continuing with the public questions, and I'll move to ask if there's anyone in the public who wishes to speak in opposition to this application. Okay, seeing none, I'll open the floor to committee members for any questions, discussion, comments. All quiet, okay. Given that, I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer to read the motion.
Mr. Chair, and I will keep it brief, referencing the conditions as outlined in the planning report prepared by Mr. Sumner, and just clarifying for the agent that the amended section, pardon me, let me just reference it, 5341 will be included in the decision. So that would provide you with 2 years. Decision that the application D1022, oh, my apologies, I'm reading the wrong one. Bear with me. Decision that application D102210 for consent lot severance on property located at 746 East Mellick Road, legally described as PIN 42134-0566, City of Kenora, be approved and provisional consent be granted subject to the conditions outlined within the planning report.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Do I have a mover? Mr. Barr, seconder? Bev? Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
Okay, Ms. Wheatley, I will send you notice of that decision again with that amended section for the 2-year provisional approval to meet those conditions. You don't have any questions, but if you do, you know how to get a hold of us, and I will get you that decision by Thursday. The appeal period would take us to June 8th.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, we have lastly, recommendation council amendment to zoning bylaw, application D14-22-05. And I believe the applicant's representative is a Kenora Resource Consultants. And who do we have here tonight for that group? Oh,
that would be me, Mr. Chair.
Very good. The floor is yours.
Screen, if that's all right, Melissa.
Sure, absolutely. Kevin, do you mind allowing Mr. Rock to share?
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Sharing, okay, good.
Everyone can see that. So as mentioned, my name is Charles Patney. I'm a planner with Kenora Resource Consultants, and I'm here to present the application for a zoning bylaw amendment for 216 Matheson Street in the Harbour Town Center area. So as mentioned, the property is designated Harbour Town Center and it's zoned institutional. It has about 30 meters of frontage along Matheson Street and a depth of about 45 meters. And it's the site of the former Northland Supportive Housing Development or building that has since been demolished. So what's left is currently vacant exposed bedrock with some machine packed fill. And it's located in the mixed use area where there's shopping, restaurants, recreational activities, and even schools nearby. So I'll show you a couple of photos here. You can see that it's been cleared of any development, and there was some fill that was brought in that was noted in the environmental site assessment that was conducted by Pension, but there was no concerns that came of that ESA. You can see it's located in the Harbour Town Center, like I mentioned, just showing you a little bit of that surrounding context. Within that purple bluish square, depending on what you can see on your screen, you know, we have the white cap pavilion, the Peace Park, the Safeway, the boat launch, and even just the edge of the rec center there, along with all the shops and restaurants that are within the Harbour Town Center area. And then within a 1 kilometer distance, which is usually about a 10 to 12 minute walk, you get into the hospital, the Seven Generations Institute, King George Public School, and a number of other things within the city of Kenora. And just to show you a little bit about what's going on in the area. So the proposal here is to rezone the subject property from institutional, which is what it currently is, to general commercial. And the effect of that would be to allow future redevelopment of the property to accommodate mixed use development, which is similar to what already exists in the Harbour Town area, where there's commercial space on the ground floor and then residential space above. The application would maintain the existing official plan designation, and I will let the committee know, as was noted in the report, there is a bidding process underway for an expression of interest. The applicant in this interest, Kenora District Services Board, is not to be the developer. They have an expression of interest out, and they're using this rezoning as a way to incentivize redevelopment of this site, which is currently vacant and underutilized within the city's Harbour Town Center area. And as part of that expression of interest, the applicant has required that some of those residential units that are to be proposed in the future meet the criteria for affordable housing as defined by the city and the province. So just to give you a couple examples of other mixed use developments in the area, you have the PharmaSafe building where you have commercial on the bottom, residential above. This is on the same city block as the subject property. You have the Royal LePage building, also downtown, also general commercial zone, official plan designation being Harbour Town Center. You've got commercial on the bottom and 2 floors of residential above, located on Matheson Street, the same street as the subject property. And then a little bit of a more recent mixed use development in the Harbour Town area is Board Anyone Arts Hub commercial space on the bottom and the residential above that you can see with those Juliet style balconies. So in terms of the compliance with the provincial policy statement, the policy statement promotes economic development by promoting mixed use development. It accommodates affordable housing, and it looks to integrate transit supportive intensification within the city's settlement area, which this proposal very much does. In terms of the city's official plan, it's very similar to what the provincial policy statement requires, promoting compact development that's transit supportive and supports active transportation as well. As I noted, all those things around the 500 meter radius of the subject property, all of those are walkable within 5 minutes of this property. And then within 10 minutes, you have a number of other things that future residents could walk to. And in terms of transit supportive, there is the bus stop at Chipman Street and 2nd Street by the subway. That's about 200 meters from the subject property, which future residents could use, but also could be an avenue for people in the city of Kenora to access any commercial development that would be at this property in the future. And then in terms of the zoning bylaw, like I mentioned, it is zoned institutional, which does not accommodate mixed use development, nor does it accommodate residential development. So the general commercial zone, which is the zone for a number of buildings in the downtown, or not downtown, Harbortown area, promotes a wide range of uses and services to meet the needs of business and tourists. And it also promotes residential development, so long as that residential development is not on the ground floor. So in this instance, you'd have commercial on the ground floor and residential above. I will note that there isn't any development proposed as part of this application. It's simply to allow for the future redevelopment of the site to accommodate a mixed-use building with affordable housing units. So in summary, a zoning bylaw amendment is being requested to rezone from institutional to general commercial. The proposal complies with the provincial policy statement and the City of Kenora's official plan. The proposed zoning is in keeping with the surrounding land uses that are similarly zoned. And the zoning bylaw amendment would accommodate or allow for the redevelopment of a vacant site within the Harbortown Center area, which is of extreme importance to the City of Kenora. But like I said, there's no development or site alteration proposed at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your proposal. Kevin, do you want to proceed with your staff report?
Yeah, so certainly. So as we've heard, the application is to amend the zoning of the subject property from I or institutional zone to GC or general commercial zone. You see an aerial image on the front of my report, which looks a little bit different from the photo I've taken more recently, and that the Northland building was still there at the time of the satellite imagery that we use from 2019. So the property owners, as we've heard, wish to redevelop the property with residential mixed-use development, which isn't permitted in the I zone and is permitted under the GC zone with certain requirements that I'll get into in a bit. The property is the former location of the Northland Supportive Housing Building and has been vacant since the demolition of the building. It's a fully serviced lot with approximately 30 meters of frontage on Matheson Street South. The applicants have completed and submitted a phase 1 environmental site assessment, as mentioned by Mr. Schrag. And you'll see there, as I mentioned, a more recent site photo showing the leveled site, which will be the site of the future development if the zoning movement's approved. So the provincial policy statement encourages planning authorities to promote economic development and competitiveness by providing for an appropriate range and mix and range of employment, institutional, and broader mixed uses to meet long-term need, and encouraging compact mixed-use development that incorporates compatible employment uses to support livable and resilient communities with consideration of Housing Policy 1.4.3. So when Policy 1.4.3 directs planning authorities to provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities to meet projected market-based and affordable housing need of current and future residents of the regional market area by directing the development of new housing towards locations where appropriate levels of infrastructure and public service facilities are or will be available to support current projected needs. And turning to the official plan, just hitting on a few key policies here. Mr. Schrag has mentioned a few other policies in his planning rationale, which I agree are also supportive of the project. But the key ones, as I see it, are that being that the land use designation of the property is Harbortown Center. Harbortown Center designation represents the downtown area of the city and is considered to be an extremely important component of the commercial and recreational land use system of the City of Kenora. It's the intent of the plan that this area contains major concentrations of commercial, finance, tourism, entertainment, recreation, residential, and business activities, and provides a dynamic commercial core for the residents and visitors to the City of Kenora. Multi-unit residential development in conjunction with commercial uses is encouraged in the Harbortown Center, where the street level is used for commercial purposes. Turning to the zoning bylaw number 101-2015, the subject property is zoned I or institutional zone, which allows for the development of public and privately owned facilities of an institutional or community service nature. The I zone, importantly, does not permit the development of residential units of a non-institutional nature or commercial uses. Most of the neighboring properties are zoned GC. Lots on the opposite side of Matheson Street are zoned LC or local commercial zone. before you get into residential zoning further east. The application proposes to amend the zoning to GC, which allows for a wide range of uses and services to meet the needs of residents, businesses, and tourists. The GC zone permits commercial uses only on the ground floor of a building unless upper story commercial uses are an extension of the ground floor use. Dwelling units may be located within the same structure and above one or more permitted uses that occupy the first floors of a non-residential use building. So in summary, commercial at first floor, residential on second floor and above. We did circulate this for departmental and agency circulation and received no concerns back in response to that circulation. In terms of public comments, notice of the application was given in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act. As of the date of the report, no public comments have been received and none have been received since. In terms of evaluation, the proposed zoning amendment is appropriate, in my opinion, to permit redevelopment of the property as a mixed-use development, similar to many other properties in the Harbour Town Centre area. Both the provincial policy statement and the official plan are supportive of mixed-use commercial and multi-unit residential development. The applicant indicates that the proposed redevelopment will provide affordable dwelling units to meet local housing needs. This commercial and residential development will be located on a fully serviced lot within the downtown area, where a broad range of services and a local bus route may be found within a walkable distance. Site plan control approval will be required if the property is redeveloped as proposed. Therefore, it's my recommendation that the application for zoning bylaw amendment, file number D14-22-05, to change the zoning of the subject property from I institutional zone to GC general commercial zone, should be approved in lieu of public comments that may yet be received.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Shrag, do you have any questions of the planning report or anything further to add?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the floor to the public for anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this application. Okay, seeing none, I'll open the floor to anyone who wishes. Oh, sorry, Ryan, did I miss you there?
No, that's all right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time this evening. Appreciate the consideration of this application. My name is Ryan Beaumont. I work for the Kenora District Services Board, and our CAO Henry Wall was planning to attend this meeting, but unfortunately finds himself somewhere in between Kenora and Dryden at this point without reception. Again, appreciate the consideration for this application, and you know, we're doing our best to address the housing situation in Kenora and throughout the district, and this you know, we're trying out some different approaches to delivering housing, and so that is part of the drive behind this this zoning amendment that we're proposing is allowing for this site to be a mixed-use building with residential units as part of the development. So we're looking forward to seeing this move forward, and looking forward to seeing what we can do on this site. So appreciate your time this evening, and again, thank you for your consideration of this. Oh, and I see Henry seems to be joining us at this very second. I don't know if he'll have he may want to chime in here. Henry, would you like to add any comments?
Hi, good evening. Sorry, I was just able to join, so I didn't catch the question.
No, we were we had just finished going through the proposal. The city planner just provided his recommendation, and they had just opened up the floor for anyone from the public to comment.
Sounds good. No comment at this point.
Okay, very good. Then I'll ask if there's anyone in the public that wishes to speak in opposition to this application. Seeing none, I'll open the floor to the committee members. Any questions, discussion? Mr. Barr?
Just one quick one. When this property actually was a Northland Hotel, what was it zoned? Or do we know?
Institutional.
It was zoned when it was operating as a hotel. It was zoned institutional? Or was it changed from whatever zoning that was, probably commercial to institutional, and then we're going back to general commercial?
Do you have that answer, Kevin, from the past?
No, I don't have historical information on the property. So all I can say is that at least for the last 7 years under the current zoning bylaw, it's been institutional. Prior to that, I just don't know. Sorry.
Okay, no questions. Thank you.
No questions? Anyone else in the committee? Okay. Oh, Bev?
No, I'm fine.
Fine. Okay. Very good then. And then I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer to read the motion.
Certainly. Thank you. Resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to the Corporation or the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kenora to approve application for zoning bylaw amendment file number D14-2205 for subject property municipally known as 216 Matheson Street South and identified in Schedule A to the recommendation. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to change the zoning of the subject property from I, institutional zone, to GC, general commercial zone. The effect of the application is to enable future mixed-use redevelopment of the subject property. The committee has made an evaluation of the application upon its merits against the official plan 2015, zoning bylaw number 101-2015, and the provincial policy statement 2020, and provides a recommendation to council purely based on these matters, whereas the committee may have not had the opportunity to hear public comments in full.
Okay, very good. I'll ask if we have a mover on that motion.
Yeah.
Mr. McDougall, seconder. Chris? Okay. And any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
Mr. Patney, so this was a recommendation to council that was received here this evening. The statutory public meeting will be held on Tuesday, June 7th at noon.
Okay. Well, that concludes our application process for the evening. Thank you, everyone, for your applications. And we'll move to new business, site plan control review. Adam, or is that you, or is it going to be Kevin?
That'll be me.
That'll be Kevin. Don't we have another zoning bylaw amendment here?
Oh, sorry, Adam. We did that in advance. We did that concurrently with the minor variance.
Okay, and that is my fault for being late.
Okay, Kevin, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I understand there's some questions about site plan control. Melissa had uploaded the site plan control presentation. I'm not sure. I'm certainly willing to go in whatever direction makes the best use of your time as far as addressing questions or concerns of the committee. I could run through the site plan control presentation, but I believe at least some or most of you have seen this presentation in the past. So if you feel that going through all the details of site plan control isn't something you need, if you'd rather discuss more specific examples, I'd be happy to go in that direction.
Committee members, do you want to do more specifics, or do you want to move along with the presentation? John?
Yeah, just to be specific, who you get a site plan. I mean, there's a rezoning recommended to council. Council approves the rezoning based on a proposal for the property in question. That proposal's gone before the public. You then get a site plan. Who has the authority to approve a change in scope of the original proposal that was part of the rezoning application?
The change in scope really once, and this is something that in planning we often struggle with is, I think there's an increasingly expectation, especially with modern media and the ability to get concept plans out there, and just the fact that many people are visual, and there's an expectation that to see what's going to happen on a property. And this isn't something that's unique to Kenora. I've ran into this everywhere I've worked, and I think it's reality in all communities is that it's quite common for there to be changes in a site plan of various sorts of a development proposal between when it's first brought forward at the zoning amendment stage and when it's finalized, when they're applying for a building permit, or even there's quite frequently changes even after a building permit is issued. It's not uncommon for architects and designers to come back and seek changes to the drawings, even as things are built, whether it's for site-specific concerns or aesthetic things, or it can be for any number of reasons. So the fact is, when a zoning amendment is changed, if it's just a straight zoning amendment from, say, R1 to R3, to a higher density residential zone, if it's just straight approved, somebody may have a concept plan showing, say, 2 apartment buildings on a large property. And then, if there's no conditions or site-specific limitations based on that zoning amendment, if it's just approved as a pure R1 to R3 rezoning, then the applicant or any future owner of the property is free to develop the property with any permitted use in the R3 zone. So while they may have shown a concept plan, and often entirely in good faith, indicating one path of development, they may in fact come up with something completely different, either in the short or long term. And we have some properties in Kenora that have been rezoned years and years ago, and one that comes to mind is, say, the Headwaters condominium along the Lake of the Woods, where they had a concept plan with a certain number and size of buildings based on what they had envisioned at that time. And I would expect that now, if they came forward, having had the experience of built one building, I wouldn't be surprised for future condominiums or different types of buildings on that property to be different than what was shown conceptually years ago. So that's a case of that's an example of property. I think that one's been sitting around for about a dozen years. Others, it's certainly more short term than that. And so I think one of the key points that generated this current discussion is, as I understand it, is what is currently the Ontario Aboriginal housing development on 9th Street, which originally was proposed as KDSB was the property owner at the time that it was brought forward, and as I understand, had the intention of developing it themselves at that time for reasons that many of which are completely unknown to me. It ended up being a different agency that's developing the property, and it did come forward as a 30-unit build as opposed to the 20-unit build that was being proposed at the time. And really, when we get an application for site plan control, we have a little bit of discretion outside of existing bylaws, but really, when we get an application for site plan control, we're really looking to what regulations are in place. We we can't further, unless there's a restriction placed on the property at the time of zoning through a site-specific amendment, we have no authority to turn away a permitted use or to decline a permitted use, assuming that all applicable regulations of the zoning bylaw and other applicable bylaws are reflected in the proposal that's brought forward.
I understand that, but I read the site plan bylaw or whatever, approval bylaw. Who has the authority when
our bylaw, right?
Let me finish.
Oh, sure.
Who has the authority, council or administration?
So right now the bylaw generally rests with administration and myself and our chief building official. There is mechanisms in the current bylaw for appeals to council or for council to request that it be brought before them. And actually, we're going to have to update that site plan control bylaw there's a few things I think need to be updated, but most importantly, with the passage of Bill 109, the provincial government has now removed the ability for council to be involved in site plan control approval. So now, even though our bylaw says it could be brought before council, as I understand it, Bill 109, and just earlier today, I was trying to sit through a presentation on all of the provisions of Bill 109, and I haven't got through everything, but that is one of the things that we wouldn't be able, we are unable now to bring it before council for review.
My point is, it was a lot of public input, concern, whatever you want to call it, at the time when that rezoning recommendation of rezoning was brought forward, and it was constantly referred to as 20 units, that particular one, to the point where that was almost the deciding factor in maybe the decision of PAC at the time. It certainly was brought forward to the public as that the expression was, there isn't even enough land to go to 30 units. And when a rezoning is done with the public consultation that's expected on the basis of the size of a project, and the scope changes that significantly, wouldn't you expect to have to go back before the public, even if the ownership has changed? Let me give you an example. We did a file not too long ago. I think it was Lakeside Crescent, where the proponent wanted to rezone from R2 to R3. He had 2 units on the property. He wanted, I think, to put 4 units in a condo type development in an R3 zone. There was public concern based on different reasons. The KDSB project, the public concern was based on risk exhibited by those that they felt were going to be living in these units. The public concern on Lakeside Crescent was more about privacy, children, the street wasn't big enough, density, that type of thing. My question is, we did not recommend it to council at that time, the Lakeside Crescent one, because of the public concern, I would guess. Council may have looked at it after, but let's assume we had recommended it and council had approved it. Then what you're saying, if that gentleman came back on a 4-unit rezone project and said, I want to put 8 in now or 6 in now, because I've got a different design, I've got more room, then administration can simply approve that on the basis he's now R3 without going back to the public who raised such concerns in the first place?
Within limits, we can limit density. There are specific policies in the official plan that in the established area limit the density to medium density on residential lots. So on that one, I can't recall exactly how many square meters we're talking about with the property. I'd have to go back to the report. So there were limiting factors that would have limited them from being able to they may have been able to, yeah, I can't even recall if they could have fit more units in there than what they were proposing or not. I know it was something that we discussed with them at the time.
I don't want to be overly critical, but it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth when 2 or 3 years ago we set up on in your office, and there was 30, 40 people there who were literally concerned and constantly were told 20 units. There was a public meeting after over at the Ukrainian Hall. This project represents 20 of those units. This was the actual statement. Everything was 20 units. Devin's report was to accommodate 20 units. The KDSB planned 20 units. The other 10 units are going somewhere else because we don't have room for 30 units. And so we made a decision based on that presentation. And then 2 or 3 years later, we read it's 30 units. If I had been a member of that public and I found out that was now 30 units, or it dawned on me that it's now 30 units, I wouldn't be very happy. And our vote at that time was based on 20 units. I just don't understand a change in scope that large, how that can just slide through based on the decision of administration.
Well, if I could just maybe, to jump in here,
Sure.
And I think further to Maywa, as Kevin mentioned there, in terms of all the other applicable sections of the zoning bylaw. So, I mean, I think in terms of the number of units, if it, it increases, and then as Kevin mentioned, then you have to look back at density and how that would, fit into it. Or there was a reference back to parking requirements and how that would change. But in my mind, I think it really is, if they can increase the number of units within the scope of that project, but it doesn't really impact, anything pertaining to the zoning bylaw, I don't really see that as needing to trigger a new public process. I think, oftentimes that when you do have somebody come forward, and you saw this today, right, with the KDSB project on Matheson Street, where they don't have a whole lot of information. And you'd want to encourage applicants to come forward as much as possible, but sometimes, you may get the sense that, more is often less, where it does impact their ability to get an approval. So what I think I'd encourage the committee is, in terms of any review of an application, that I think the number of units is a little bit more too nuanced in my mind in terms of that review. But when it gets to a matter of, that units changes the footprint of the building, or if you look at you're impacting what those parking requirements are going to be and so forth. Yeah, it's a little bit more challenging, but I do think, especially when it comes to things like affordable housing and so forth, it gets to be in a little bit more of a precarious position when we're making those, we're limiting the number of people that may be able to reside in those units.
And that I can understand.
If I can jump in here too, Adam and John, I'd like to say that that's the way the situation is now, but 3 years ago or 4 or 5 years ago, the process was somewhat different. We were provided with a lot more information on proposals, and the bylaw was subsequently changed. So the process has changed, and we're limited to the information we get now. Also, I'd like to clarify that 9th Street project, the KDSB at the time and Ontario Aboriginal Housing, they were in partnership, and I'm not sure who actually owns the property. I can't say for sure whose name is on the document, but I know they worked in partnership. KDSB was proposing this and promoting it, and Aboriginal Housing was funding it. And to my knowledge, it's still the same. And I agree with John. I mean, I sat in those meetings with the public, and the public was not happy. And it was voted for a 20-unit building. And here we are now, and they're talking 30 units, and the public, to my knowledge, is not aware of it or not following it. And what is the process for that? It does leave a bad taste in your mouth when things like that happen. And the process, in my opinion, is somewhat flawed. So whether it meets the legal letter of the law, I guess it does, but it doesn't seem right. So I'll leave it at that.
And I'll leave it at that too. I don't. Oh, I mean, it's too late now. It's not.
Yeah, it's too late.
Yeah, they're digging, so.
You know, I guess, you know, if there's a lesson from this, and I think we, you know, all like everybody, I think we all benefit from experience, and unfortunately, sometimes those experiences are more frustrating than others. It's that you know, perhaps that's a lens to keep in mind as future applications come forward, where there is and for myself equally as for the committee, when there are items of particular concern for the public where it's felt that, you know, that's very important to the success of a project, whatever they might be, that it be considered as a condition. And I'm always happy to, you know, discuss options for conditions that may address concerns and keep things moving forward.
Bev?
Has there been any contact at all from the public regarding that structure? Kevin or Melissa? Adam?
I haven't heard anything since construction started on the site.
No, there wouldn't have been any further public communications that went out about the project.
I meant, has the public contacted you, because the neighborhood was very upset about it? Has anyone phoned and asked any questions about the 30 units?
No.
Not me.
None? Do you know if the qualifier to get into the units is still having addiction and alcohol issues to qualify to get into those 30 units? Because it was a qualification to get into the 20 units.
Yeah, no operational information has been shared with me, at least. You know, they did apply for a building permit and site plan approval, but those kind of information isn't required with those applications.
And that's why I think it needs to be, you know, reinforced as a fact that, you know, those program details, I think, would be outside the realm of any review for the committee. I think we, you know, that's not, you know, we zone for the land use, not for the people. I think that's something we've continually tried to, you know, reinforce at the city for a number of different projects. And that's been the challenge, is oftentimes, yeah, people want to know all the details, but when it comes to zoning and doing this type of process, it's not intended on being pertaining to those facts, unless it affects what the use may be and how that may change what that's going to be. But I think you really go down a bit of a rabbit hole when we start to go in that level of detail.
Well, that was part of that conversation when that came to the PAC committee, and that's why I'm asking you now. And that was partly why everybody was so upset with it being so close to school and these people. And I mean, they need help. I mean, I get it. But I'm just wondering now, we've got another 10 or maybe 20. I don't know if there's going to be 2 people in each unit or not. So that's why I was asking. And what I would like to say is,
go on.
What was that?
Oh, I was just going to say, as I understand it, it is still a supportive housing facility and meets the definition under the, you know, bylaw for that. So that's basically, yeah, I mean, unless that changes, then certainly that becomes a bigger issue. But for now, you know, I'm confident that that's still the intent of the program.
Okay.
Well,
my final comment, like everybody's saying, there's nothing we can do about it now. My heart is broken. I just feel that the integrity of the committee, you know, is at risk, or it's already gone, because, you know, we put our heart and soul into this, and we vote on things, we do our research, we investigate, we spend our time, and then something like this happens, and it, you know, it's just not right. We just don't, I don't feel that it's right. And I just feel that I'm not telling anybody I'm on the planning committee anymore, because it's like everything gets blown up. It's just, and it's not what the end result is, not what I thought I was voting for, or what the community is getting. So I'm just saying that I think the integrity of the committee is taking a hit in situations like this, and I'd sure like to see it fixed. But anyway, that's my comments. Thank you.
John?
Just a quick question, which might be stupid. Is it 30 units or 20 units?
Oh, it's up to, I think, 30 units now.
Oh, okay, thank you. Just wanted to check.
Yep.
All right, well, we all, okay, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of I'd like to just say that, again, I have issue with, again, the specifics of the uses when it comes to supportive housing or any type of form of discrimination for the applicants. I mean, I don't know if there's a process or a way to omit that type of discussion at a technical review on an application, but yeah, it opens up a lot of doors and puts us in a rabbit hole, as Adam said. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Okay, well, we've all had a chance to vent, I guess, and I suppose that was the reason for the site plan control review. I don't personally think we have to go through any training tonight, but if anyone else has anything further to add, I'll leave the floor open for a couple minutes. Otherwise, I guess we're done. Can I ask for someone to adjourn then? John? Thank you. Okay, we'll see you all in June. Say goodnight.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.